Hi everyone, my name is Mirella Tranquille. I am a PhD candidate uh, in philosophy at the University of Guelph. Thank you, Meena Krishnamurthy, for having me as your discussant for the presentation of your book, The Emotions of Nonviolence. So today I will discuss the central thesis of the book. And then I will focus on two chapters of the book, which chapters that I found central to the argument, which are chapter 4 on fear and chapter 6 on love. And finally, I will finish my presentation with my thoughts on the contribution of this book in broader debates. So the questions Krishnamurti is asking herself in this book is how to sustain motivation among the Black community for nonviolent resistance in the US. And the answer she provides is political emotions such as dignity, indignation, fear, courage, faith, and love will sustain the motivation for nonviolent action. And to defend that, to support that thesis, she used a close reading of Martin Luther King Jr.'s text, especially the letter from Birmingham jail. And she also used traditional Black political thought, such as W.E.B. Du Bois, Frederick Douglass, I.D.B. Wells, and Fannie Lou Hamer. And also contemporary theorists such as Martha Nussbaum. And implicitly, the book is informed by a feminist, anti-capitalist perspective. The book is structured in three parts. The first part is the background, so that gives you a historical and social context of the letter from chapter 1 and letter from Birmingham jail from chapter 1 to chapter 3. The second part is emotions, so from chapter 4 to chapter 6, in which she analyzes political emotions and how, according to King, they help to motivate action. And finally, the part 3 is nonviolence from chapter 7 to chapter 8. And she discusses what is nonviolence for King and why it is the best tactic to fight against segregation and for freedom in general for Black people. So let's start with chapter 4. I will describe how it works and then I will give you my thoughts on it. So it starts with an observation that King's made that Black Americans suffer from inferiority complex and live in fear. What is fear according to King? So you have three types of fear. You have existential fear, which is a fear that Black Americans experience in the US because they face segregation. So they fear the white Americans. They fear the suffering that they can endure, that they could endure if they try to resist segregation. And then you have also social fear. So social fear is a fear that someone experiences that is different depending on which society, in which era you live. So for example, you can have economic fear in this society, which is the fear of living in a competitive society. And, and finally, you have also personal fear. For example, the fear of yourself is a personal fear, according to King. And this fear of yourself can produce inferiority complex. And what is inferiority complex according to King? It's something that make you feel insecure, make you lose your self-confidence. That's something that make you lose faith in yourself, something that make you feel less than human. So the problem is in the political sphere is that if you experience these three types of fear, such as the Black Americans, they experience existential, social, and personal fear, and they experience inferiority complex, that will paralyze their political action when they face segregation. They won't move. And so what King King wants is to harness that fear. A good way to harness fear, according to King, is to laugh at the perspective of dying. So, for example, an example that Krishnamurthy provides in her book is before going to the Birmingham March, King would say to the other activists, "Are you ready to go to Birmingham?" Because he's making fun or he's ridiculing the fact that this city is a place where there are a lot of bombing in the Black community just to terrorize the Black community. So just laughing at the perspective of dying when you're doing your political action. That would be a way to harness fear, according to King. King also aims to courage. So he aims for fearlessness. He also aims for overcoming inferiority complex. And how do you do that? For King, it's prayer. Never stop praying, King would say. It's because prayer is a self-surrender to God. And it nourishes your faith, not only in God, but in also in humanity. So if you pray and you nourish your faith with this praying, that will help you accept yourself the way you are with the skin color you have, and that will help you overcome your inferiority complex as a Black person. So why is it working? According to Krishnamurthy, it's this ontology of God that King provides in his Christian metaphysics. So God is not only powerful, so he's powerful in the sense that he orders everything and he sustains everything, but God is also good and God is also personal. God is caring, and God is only motivation is holy love. So if you believe in this type of God, a God that is caring, but a God that is powerful, a God that is good, then that will help you restore your value, restore your confidence. And so this is why for King, prayer, faith in God will help the Black community overcome their fears and inferiority complex, which are barriers to political actions. So what is good in this chapter is not only this convincing reconstruction of King's theology. As I said, God is a personal spirit who is motivated by holy love. He is a creator and he is good. So this reconstruction is so clear. It shows a real command of the material. But not only that, Krishnamurti also gives us efficient rhetorical strategies, especially the use of powerful direct quotations. For example, from Black thinkers. For example, it is the deep humiliation arising from dying without the benefit of cause or purpose. It is merely being killed or being beaten in other wrath or indifferent sadism without the dignity of being on the receiving end of a premeditated act. This is from a Black activist, Howard Thurman, in Jesus and the Disinherited, as cited by Krishnamurti. So the use of these direct quotations from Black thinkers provides emotional depth to the text, but not only that, it also gives a platform to Black thinkers in a discipline where the in a discipline where they suffer from testimonial injustice. That means that their testimony is not recognized as a source of knowledge in this discipline. So, but the limits, my concern is that the way Krishnamurti phrases her sentences sometimes makes you think that she treats King's political ontology as an objective truth transferable across contexts. So Krishnamurti, just like many contemporary political theories, would like to give the origin of King's nonviolence thought um, to with Gandhi. So it starts with Gandhi, and then you have King, and then you have us today who are supposed to act like King, us, the Black community. So, so for India, that means even if you are exploited, even if you are oppressed, you are still considered a human being. Um, you are positioned as a human being. And then in the 60s with King, so same thing. Even if you are a Black person and you are oppressed, you are still positioned as a human being. So not as opposed to someone who is socially dead, someone who is a slave in the Orlando Patterson sense. But and then you are supposed to transpose this political ontology to today. That's the goal of the book. Um, but this is not necessarily compelling now because you have now Afro-pessimists who challenge this political ontology and would say that Black people are not even positioned as human beings. And if you don't believe in Afro-pessimists, the quotation that I just read from Howard Thurman is describing not an anti-Blackness caused by exploitation, it's a gratuitous violence against Black people, an anti-Blackness that has no reason. It's not to create obedience, it's not to exploit people. It's just different. And this framing, this political ontology framing does not give you that. So this is why I would say that it is necessary to make a dialogue between this book and Afro-pessimists, and also with Howard Thurman. And that would challenge this idea that you find in the book that, for example, Black moderates and white moderates are interchangeable just because they are in the same class and have the same income. That would make them interchangeable according to this book. But if you have another reading from Afro-pessimist, so our Clement, you would see that this idea can be challenged. And so moving on to chapter 6, love. So the question Krishnamurti is asking herself is why between love and hate did King choose love to guide political action? And the other question that comes with this research question is how does one manage to love one's enemy? And so for King, the answer is agape love. The highest form of love can motivate political nonviolent action. So what is love according to King? King said that there are two types of love. You have self-love, loving yourself. That will give you some dignity and personal acceptance. This is the length of life. But you have another type of love, which is the love of others. And in the love of others, King provides a hierarchy of love. So the lowest type of love is utilitarian, because you love someone because they can benefit you. It's for your own self-interest. And then higher than that, you have eros love, motherly love, filial love, humanitarian love, agape love, and then love of God, which is the highest form of love. So agape love is a self-giving love. It is the divine love in the human heart. So it is indifferent to merit. And so why love is better than hate, according to King? He provides multiple arguments. So you have a consequentialist argument, which is hate multiplies hate in the age of nuclear weapons. So refusal to love risk annihilation for the Black communities. And you have also a transformative argument. Love has redemptive power. So love can turn your enemies into friends. And you have also a psychological argument. Hate, hate harms the self as much as it harms the other. And there is another type of argument, which is freedom through forgiveness. So freedom for all Americans requires forgiveness, which can only be offered to agape love. An example is, to illustrate this idea, is a quote from King in 1959 that he said in Mississippi during a meeting. He said, "Bomb our homes and we will still love you." So for Krishnamurthy, that shows, that illustrates a radical commitment to forgiveness in order to create a society together with former enemies. So the task is to love and forgive your enemies as they are, as you recognize them as creatures of God. And God, remember, God is good. God is caring. God is personal. So again, what is strong in this chapter is the conceptual clarity when it comes to reconstructing King's hierarchy of love. Just like the breakdown, she gives good breakdown. Just like the ontology of God that was very clear, it's the same for the hierarchy of love. And with this, you can make it's easy for you to make a link between agape love as this self-giving, spontaneous, indifferent to merit love, to faith. So this shows you how the ethics edifice holds. And also, there is also a psychoanalytical resonance to me. It's implicit. It's not something that is explicit with the Krishnamurti. So, but the way she describes God, God for King, is God is a father figure. So as a father figure, God gives you your name. And God is also an idea of the self. So it's a model. You want to act like God. And the fact that God is a father figure explains this irrational attachment to the counterintuitive demand of loving people who killed your kids in the church. So, and also another strength of this chapter is the concrete example she provides. So missionary story. So it's King who said that you have white missionaries who will tell you, please send money to Black Africans in the name of God, in the name of humanitarian love. But then King would say, But if a Black African shows up to the church of this white missionary, they would kick this Black African out. And that shows you how, shows you the gap between this abstract humanitarian love and loving actual people. So this is good, but the limit or the concern or the need for clarification is this apparent circularity between forgiveness and love. It looks like forgiveness and love are mutually dependent, because in order for you to love your enemies with this ideal love, you need to first forgive them for what they did to you. But for you to be able to forgive them, you need to love them with this divine love. So how exactly do you get out of this circle? So to finish, to conclude, I will briefly discuss the contribution of this book to broader debates. So you have, of course, the debate right now between the use of violence or versus the use of non-violence in social movements. And you have also this debate between whatever ethics you chose, ethics of resistance you chose, what justification will you choose? Will it be principle justifications or deontological? So you have principles and then you apply it, or pragmatic justification. So you choose this other ethics of resistance because that will give you the more, it will give you more likely the desirable outcome. So for example, democratization of the society, for example. So Krishnamurthy, her book, justifies nonviolence primarily to emotion as moral compass, while allowing some space for pragmatic consideration. And so it is, in that sense, a useful corrective to purely consequentialism, purely pragmatist readings. So with the empirical efficacy framings. But the issue to me is that the book suggests that if love is the core of ethics, then it must naturally lead to nonviolence. But if theological ethics is about imitating the divine Father, it does not follow that Black people must always be nonviolent. King contemporaries such as Robert F. Williams raised the objection directly, arguing that God violently expelled the devil from the paradise. So I can read you that. It's Robert F. Williams in his newspaper, The Crusader. The article is called USA, the Potential of a Minority Revolution. So this advocates of the Christian power of nonviolence and love omit that part of the Old Testament which described the evil subversion attempted by the devil when peaceful coexistence degenerated in heaven to a state of open conflict wherein the Christian's God, the highest ideal of peace and love, ordered the devil forcibly ejected from the heavenly society. In removing the devil and his evil from menacing the peace of the ideal community, it is significant to note that God did not see fit to relegate such an important task to the realm of nonviolence. Why is the model Afro-American expected to be more peaceful and loving towards the enemy than is divine God? So the fact that the book does not engage with this type of objection, to me, that shows me that this is an incomplete defense of nonviolence. And also, yeah. So let me finish that. So I want to thank Dr. Meena Krishnamurthy for this book as a long-awaited contribution to the largely pragmatic scholarship of nonviolence, even though it would benefit from including King's thoughts on Fanon and the Black Power, as figured in the Where Do We Go From Here? The book reminds us that the emotions of activists are not peripheral, but central to understanding the ethics of their resistance. Thank you.